I'm working on it on another computer to see if I can get it up.
You might just be able to open the PDF in your mail.
That's what I tried.
It didn't work?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm gonna try again.
okay. I'm out of suggestions then.
You and I are the same type of IT. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, I got it. Thank you for sending it to me. I don't know what was my other problem.
Great.
Okay, I got it. Thank you so much for sending it to me.
Okay, I call the September 8th, 2020 regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. It's 7 p.m. And the first item is the roll call. Commissioner Christensen,
Present.
Commissioner Benavides. He has been excused. Commissioner Park.
Good evening, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Seavey.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Gay. He won't be joining us this evening either. He's on his way back from Denver, apparently. Commissioner Berenson
Present.
and Commissioner Eby is here. So we have 5, which is sufficient for a quorum. And the next item is approval of the agenda. Director Justice, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, there are no changes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Park moved to approve the agenda. Commissioner Berenson seconded the motion. And we'll have a vote by roll call. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Park,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Seavey,
Yes.
Commissioner Berenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eby, yes. The motion carries unanimously. And now we move on to the public comment period. And I do note that we have a very full agenda this evening, so I'm going to ask for public comment and ask people, if they are commenting, to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Residents may address the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that don't appear elsewhere on the agenda this evening. Audience members will be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items as they come up. Speakers should register with the village staff prior to the beginning of the meeting. Kiko, do we have any members of the public signed up to speak this evening?
Not for general public comment.
Okay. Is there anyone in attendance who hasn't signed up, who does wish to speak during the public comment period? Please use the raise hand tool to indicate. I'm assuming there are none. All right. We move on now to the consent agenda. These matters on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed and considered separately. We just have two items on the consent agenda, but they're both minutes of previous meetings. One is for the July 30th, 2020 special meeting, and the other is for the August 11, 2020 regular meeting. Are there any corrections or comments from the commissioners on either of these sets of minutes?
I didn't see any.
Okay. All right, hearing none. Is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda of the two approval of the minutes for the July 30th special meeting.
And what about the,
Just the 11th, 2020 regular meeting.
okay. And we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Christensen moved to approve the consent agenda with both sets of minutes, and Commissioner Seavey seconded. And so I'll call roll call again. Commissioner Christensen,
Approve.
Commissioner Park,
Approve.
Commissioner Seavey,
Yes.
Commissioner Berenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eby, yes. That motion carries unanimously. All right, now we'll move on to the public hearings and applications. The first one is 4A, and it's V20-10. A request by Magic Acres LLC for a variance from section 9.1.10A3B, a private road which provides access to the main body of 2 to 8 lots that do not abut a public right-of-way, may not be narrower than 25 feet, to allow for a 15-foot wide private access easement in the A1 zone in the North Rio Grande character area. The property is located at 8331 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest and is legally known as certain tracts of land known and described as tracts 22C1A1, 22D1, 22C2A, and 22D2A as shown on map 25 of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. Projected section 17T11N R3E NMPM, excuse me, Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico. The property contains 2.55 acres, more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this hearing? Hearing none. Attorney Winter, please swear in Director Tiffany Justice.
Tiffany, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Director Justice, may we have the planning report on this item?
Yes, Chair, Commissioners. So in this case, the applicant desires to build a single-family residence on this property. There is no existing single-family residence. So per our section on MRGCD tracts, this property has to be platted as a minor subdivision before we can issue a building permit for that residence. A requirement for subdivisions is that the access road must be a minimum of 20 feet wide for one lot and 25 feet for 2 to 8 lots. The access easement in this case would serve both the subject property and the neighbor next door, 8533 Rio Grande Boulevard, as neither lot can obtain access anywhere else. The properties surrounding this are all zoned A1 in the North Rio Grande character area. So with a 15-foot wide access road, the road is still able to accommodate large emergency vehicles going one way. Bernalillo County Fire Department trucks can operate on typical 10-foot wide lanes. And so other vehicles also can accommodate in a 10-foot wide lane. And a 15-foot wide access easement accommodates two-way normal vehicular traffic, but it would not be able to accommodate two-way vehicular and emergency vehicle access. The current paving of the road allows for one-way access, and as the road leads to only two properties, anticipated traffic will be minimal. Both properties currently use the access easement at this width, and with one-way access, the current paving is less than the width of the access easement, so it is actually one-way right now. As for the variance in accordance with section 9.2.257A1, the variance is not contrary to public interest. The only two properties that could use this access road are the subject property and 8533 Rio Grande Boulevard. Development impact on the neighbors is minimal, as the property, though it's 2 acres, is limited to a single family residence. The village has received both comments in favor of and in opposition to this item prior to the publishing of the meeting packet. In accordance with section 9.2.257A2, the variance meets hardship criteria number 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For number 1, when compared with other land in the vicinity subject to the same provisions, the parcel is exceptional by reason by which no compensation was paid. So this requirement to subdivide the plat was not an issue at the time of the purchase of this land, as MRGCD tracts were not required to be replatted to become buildable lots. At the time, the applicants would not have had to replat and be subject to the width requirement if they did not want to. With adoption of the ordinance adopting MRGCD tracts requirements in 2012, it became a requirement that if there was no existing single-family residence, they could not be issued a building permit. So the property owner has purchased a buildable lot for a single-family residence that is now unbuildable for a single-family residence. For 3, parcels irregular and unusually narrow in shape, and the condition existed when provisions were adopted or was created by natural force or government action for which no compensation was paid. The access easement portion of this lot is narrower than what's allowed in our subdivision section. The rest of the lot is regular and wide enough for development. This narrow access portion was created before the provision that required it to be replatted, and no compensation was paid for this action. 4, the applicant argues that the reasonable use hindered in this case is that of a single family residence. Property zoned A1 agricultural residential. It can and is currently being used for agricultural purposes, and agricultural buildings can be constructed on it without going through the subdivision process. There is still use of the land in keeping with this zoning, though it's agriculture, but the residential use could not occur without this variance, and the zoning allows for both. 5, for the 5th criterion, the 15-foot wide access is existing and would not be reduced beyond what is currently available. The only other means to comply with this 20-foot wide access requirement is to purchase land from the neighbors to either the south or the north. Neither are obligated to, and if they don't, the applicants would be left with an unbuildable lot that they bought with the restrictive covenant allowing for a single-family residence. In your packet, a letter from one of the neighboring property owners indicates that they currently don't wish to sell to widen the access easement. As for 6, conformance with the master plan. By nature of the request, all variances do not conform with the master plan, but the variance is supported by the master plan in the following sections: overall village goals, village form, historic preservation, residential development, and transportation. And in accordance with section 9.2.257A3, use of the premises is not changing. Property zoned A1 and the access easement width would be for development of a single family residence allowed in the A1 zone. So with that, the department recommends approval of V 20-10 for variance from section 9.1.10A3B, private road which provides access to the main body of 2 to 8 lots that do not abut a private A public right-of-way may not be narrower than 25 feet to allow for a 15-foot wide private access easement in A1 zone, the North Rio Grande character area. With the findings that the variance is and is not in conformance with the goals and policies of the master plan. It's not contrary to public interest. Owing to special conditions, the literal enforcement of the section will result in an unnecessary hardship with meeting hardship criteria 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and the use of the premises is not changing. No prior application for a variance has been submitted on this property in the prior 6 months, and public notice requirements have been met. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Director Justice? Yes,
I have a question.
Commissioner Park.
Planner Justice, can you hear me okay? Thumbs up.
Yes.
My question is, I think I have two questions, and they could be the same. One is, under your analysis, I believe you talked about plotted land from 2 to 8 plots. Is that right? And currently there are only two houses on that road.
Currently, there is only one house on that road,
And then
but
this
there are
would be
2 properties.
2 properties. Would the analysis change if it is subdivided to have up to 8 properties?
In that case, I believe the analysis would change because it would have a much larger impact with the current. Well, given that the properties are, well, right now there's only one house on there. There are 2 properties. Even if they were to subdivide the back lot into 2 properties, there's only the restriction on there is that they can only have 1 house. So really only 2 families could live back there. If 8 families were living back there, I think the width may be more difficult to justify because there's higher likelihood for more traffic going back there. In both cases, whether it's 2 lots or 8 lots, both are restricted by surrounding property owners requiring, well, it's up to them whether or not they would sell their land as part of that access easement.
Right, but my point is that they could sell that land and you could go from 2 properties to 8 properties, and then we would already have this variance allowed for. Is there a way to plan for that? That if they were to sell it, then they've got to expand the road, because you're exactly right. For 2 properties is one thing, but for 8 properties is an entirely different matter, and especially if you're dealing with EMS. Is there a way we can grant a variance while recognizing that limitation?
So the limitation actually already exists with the way that the property, I guess, exists in relation to the other neighbors. There's 3 acres total back there. So with the current zoning, there could never be more than 3 lots. And there already is a restriction on one of those lots that there's only allowed to be 1 extra house. So there's still only allowed to be 2 houses back there. There's also no land really connecting this property to other properties that could use that access easement. It's bounded by the Rio Grande State Park on the west side. It's bounded by an MRGCD ditch on the south side, and on the north side, it's bounded by land that is used as a public parking lot, and it's owned by the state in this case, or PNM. So it's very unlikely that they would ever sell their land to allow for more houses to be built in that area.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Seavey.
Yeah. So just looking at the fire code, specifically for apparatus access and dead ends, dead end fire apparatus access roads in excess of 150 feet in length shall be provided with an approved area for turning around fire apparatus. Is there any way to do that with the current proposal?
Yes, Commissioner Seavey, Commissioners, that will be one of the requirements of the subdivision plat itself. They will be required to plat a emergency turnaround meeting International Fire Code specifications.
Okay, good. And then the road width, I know that, 25 feet is our minimum, but 20 feet is what the fire code calls for. Do you see this getting kind of caught up in the review process later on over that width, or would the variance allow it to carry through if it were to be granted?
I could see some hangups depending on, I guess, whether or not it would be whether or not they would consider that it needs to be 20 feet wide access. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow the rest of the turnaround. There are roads in the village that are less than 20 feet wide. There are several one-way roads that, even though the easement itself is platted for wider, is paved so that it is narrower than it's platted for. In this case, this property is one of those. The access easement is 15 feet wide, but the actual road itself is much narrower. Well, not much, like 12 or 10 feet wide. So already it's not, the road itself does not match the access easement.
Okay, thank
And so far they've been able to build a house on there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have some questions. I'm having trouble understanding why this is a subdivision. Who owns the other property at 8533?
The applicant owns both of these properties.
Okay,
And the reason why it is a subdivision, the more accurate term would be a replat. The boundary lines would not be changing with the properties, but our code calls it a subdivision. So the number of lots that exist there is 2, and there would still be 2 lots after the subdivision. We just require the lots to be platted as a subdivision if they are MRGCD tracts without single-family homes on them.
so I went by there the other day, and there's a house that looks like it's on Rio Grande. And then is there a house behind that? It looked like
Yes.
just one, okay. And then there's several fields behind that. One of them looks like a training grounds for horses or something. Is that part of this?
Yes.
Okay.
That all is part of those 2 properties.
Okay, all right. Yeah, the map was not real helpful, but I also wondered about the fire department, but I suppose that would come up in the building process application procedure. Is that right?
Yes, it would.
In other words, our variance wouldn't affect the emergency access approval of.
Yes, those 2 things can coincide and conflict. If this variance is approved, but the fire department would not allow that access width, then in that case, they would not be allowed to have that access width.
Okay. And the paved portion of that access, it has some gravel or some kind of soft shoulder on both sides. So you're saying that if you measure from, it's like a block wall out to that metal fence, that's 15 feet and no more.
Yes.
Okay. And is that metal fence on the property line? In other words, is the property to the north completely separately owned?
The property to the north is separately owned.
But the fence is right on the property line, do you know?
Yes, so the fence itself, I believe a survey may have proven otherwise, but the intent is for the fence to be on the property line.
Uh-huh. And so the potential otherwise would indicate that the fence is on whose property?
The property to the north,
Okay, so,
since that's where it would share the property line. So
uh-huh.
it
It's
could be
not-
on the northern property line.
It might be encroaching onto the
Yes.
property. Okay, all right. I think that's all the questions that I have. Thank you very much.
One more question.
Yes, Commissioner Seavey.
Yeah, in driving past, I did notice the security gates out front, and those are also subject to approval by the fire chief. So I just wanted to mention that there's quite a few possible things that could come up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a locked gate, isn't it? Okay, is any other questions for Director Justice? Then is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm adding him now. Mr. Roybal, you should be able to speak.
Okay, Mr. Roybal, please
I have
state your,
just,
hello?
thank you, Madam Chair. I have just unmuted.
All right, please state your name and address for the record.
Edward J. Roybal Law Firm, here on behalf of Scott and Sandra Harbaugh. They are the principals of Magic Acres who own the 2.7 acre parcel.
Okay. Attorney Winter, please swear in Mr. Roybal.
Madam Chair, this is Nan Winter. Just wanted to make you aware that Mr. Roybal is currently associated with our law firm working on a project for another client. So I will swear him in, but just wanted to make you aware of his relationship with Stelzner Winter.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Roybal, I know you can't see me, but could you please raise your right hand? We lost
good.
Ed.
No, we can see
Oh, there
his
he is.
face now, which is even better. Thank you.
Okay. Ed, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much.
All right. Go ahead and speak about the application, Mr. Roybal.
Yes, Your Honor. This property was being used as a horse facility. It's a very, very beautiful piece of property, and I'm sure a lot of us would like for things to stay the same and not evolve, not change, but things do evolve, things do change. And the owners of the property, Sandra and Scott, have decided that it's time for them to sell this property. They're going to also be selling their home, which is at 8533. So this is sort of both lots are being sold at the same time. These are long-term neighbors of the Los Ranchos Village community. They're reluctantly selling it, but they did find a buyer who was interested in the premises, and they were interested in perhaps building a home in the back 2.7 acre parcel. The width restriction hampered their plans to go forward, and the sellers have decided to just take it off the market until they can resolve this issue. It's correctly been stated that the property to the north is owned by the New Mexico Transportation Department. And the property to the south of the road, in part, is owned by Armando Beltran, and he's indicated quite clearly, and a copy of his letter is in the materials, that he's not interested in selling any of his property to widen that road. He actually couldn't do it because of a block wall that's there. There's also a block wall on the north side of the Harbaugh's property. So widening that road is not feasible. By not allowing the variance, Your Honor, that property will be restricted virtually to being vacant land, and it would be able to be used for some business purposes, but it reduces the pool of purchasers significantly. And we feel this would be an undue hardship on the Harbaughs, and we're requesting the commission to grant the variance and allow them to sell the property with the variance along with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roybal. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Roybal? All right. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the application?
No hands have been raised.
Okay, thank you, Kiko. And is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application?
Again, no hands have been raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further comments from the commissioners before we close the floor for comments? Hearing none. All right, the floor is now closed for comments. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the variance for V-20-10.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Park. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion for V20.
So the Commissioner Park has moved to approve the application for variance, and Commissioner Christensen has seconded the motion. So now let's see if we have any discussion among the commissioners. Any comments we would like to share with each other? I always like to have comments. I'll make a few comments. I do think that this application presents a strong case for hardship, and especially, how the Middle Rio Grande District Ordinance was adopted and has changed the effect of the access road. And so I'm convinced that it's a meritorious application. Any other comments? Okay. We're going to have a roll call vote, and this is on the motion to approve the variance. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Park,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Seavey,
Yes.
Commissioner Berenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eby, yes. All right, the motion carries unanimously. And thank you for your presentations, Ms. Justice and Mr. Roybal. And let the record show the public hearing, item 4A, the request by Magic Acres LLC for a variance is formally closed. All right, we will now move on to the next public hearing, which is, let's see if I can find it. 4B, and it's V20-11, a request by Scott Shepard for a variance from section 9.2.10 E2A The minimum rear setback shall be 15 feet to allow for placement of a structure within the rear setback in the R2 zone in the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 613 Calle del Pajarito and is legally known as Lot 10 Landmark Estates, situated in School District Number 3 with the Alameda Grant, projected section 16 T11N R3E NMPM, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, as filed in the office of the Bernalillo County Clerk on April 5, 1962. The property contains 0.49 acres more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this hearing? All right. Director Justice, may we have the planning report?
Chair, Commissioners. So in this case, the applicant desires to extend an open overhang or covered porch from a permitted building into the rear setback. The village permitted the original building in 2005 for a 1,200 square foot garage or shop. There's no record of a Bernalillo County building permit being issued until November of 2016, which was noted that it was as built with an additional 1,016 square feet of covered porches added to the structure. The Bernalillo County permit was issued about 10 years after the original permit and was issued post-construction, the opposite of the normal permitting process. The additional covered porches were not part of the original village-issued zone review permit, and one porch was constructed in the rear setback. The structure is not legally non-conforming, as satellite images from 2005 show no structure placed in that area, and satellite images from 2006, 2009, and 2015 show the expansion of the building from what was originally permitted on the south and the north sides of the original building. The original variance application for this structure was V19-01, and that was denied. However, the applicant was not present during that hearing. In the interest of providing due process and an opportunity for the applicant to present their case, the department provided the applicant the option of another variance application in the enforcement letter it issued earlier this year. Should the variance be approved, the applicant would be required to obtain a village zone review permit that includes the additional square footage so that the county approved permit matches the village approved permit. Should the variance be denied, the applicant will be required to demolish the covered porch / overhang that extends into the setback and obtain a village zone review permit that includes the remaining additional structure square footage that is not in the setback. Properties surrounding are all zoned R2 in the 4th Street character area. For the variance, in accordance with section 9.2.257A1, the variance is not contrary to the public interest. As the applicant mentions in their letter, there are other properties in the neighborhood with structures in the setbacks, whether those are through variance, legally non-conforming use, or non-compliant. Placement of a structure in the setback would not change the character of the neighborhood, as there are others. In addition, no adverse comment was received prior to publishing of the meeting packet. However, the applicants point to other structures located within the setbacks, setting precedents for placement of structures within the setbacks. Those structures may be allowed through variance, are legally non-conforming, or are legally placed in the setbacks. Granting of one variance does not set precedents for later variances, and legally non-conforming structures are not a basis for variance approvals, and placing structures within the setback is contrary to the intent of preserving open space and vistas. Regarding section 9.2.257A2, no hardship criteria were identified by the applicant and is therefore not met. The applicant states that the overhang prevents water from entering the building during severe storms. The applicant can rectify this with a grading and drainage plan, which is intended to identify areas for ponding or other drainage improvements to prevent storm flooding on properties. The applicant also states that the building needs to be as far north on the property as possible to allow vehicles to turn around. The existing building is as far north as it can be and was extended south as well. There's still space to the east and south for vehicles to turn around if the building were extended in either direction. In accordance with section 9.2.257A3, the use of the premises is not changing. The property is zoned R2 and the structure is an accessory structure permissive in that zone. As for conformance with the master plan, by the nature of the request, all variances do not conform with the master plan, and this variance is contrary to the master plan in the following sections: village form, open space, and residential development. So with that, department recommends denial of the 20-11 for variance from section 9.2.10E2A The minimum rear setback shall be 15 feet to allow for placement of a structure within the rear setback in the R2 zone in the 4th Street character area with the following findings. The variance is not in conformance with the goals and policies of the village master plan. It is not contrary to public interest. Owing to special conditions, literal enforcement of this section will not result in unnecessary hardship, and the use of the premises is not changing. No hardships were identified, and no prior application for a variance was submitted on this property in the prior 6 months. Public notice requirements have been met, and should the commission decide to approve the 20-11, the department recommends a condition of approval that the variance is for encroachment of 3.5 feet into the rear setback. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Park.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Justice Planner, can you give me if we were to grant the variance, what was your recommendation? You weren't speaking fast. I was listening slow.
Commissioner Park, commissioners, if you do decide to approve this variance, I recommend a condition that the variance is for encroachment of 3.5 feet into the rear setback.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
So I had maybe just an observation that it looks like the overhang goes clear up to the to the fence. I mean, is that correct?
Sorry, if you can give me one moment.
I didn't catch that from the map, but when it's on the bike path, so I go by there on my bike.
So the building plans that were approved, they're on page 50 of 100 of your packet. They do note that the distance of the outbuilding to the setback to the property line is more or less approximately 6.5 feet. So it could be closer to the fence. It may, if the fence is not on the property line, or it has been extended since these plans were drawn and it is closer to the property line.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Planner Justice? Okay, is the applicant present?
He's being promoted right now to a panelist.
Thank you.
Start video. Start video. Hello.
Hello. Please state your name and address for the record, Mr.
My name
Shepherd.
is Scott Shepard, and the address is 613 Calle del Pajarito.
Okay, thank you. And Attorney Winter, please swear in Mr. Shepherd.
Mr. Shepherd, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and speak about your application, Mr. Shepherd.
Okay, so first, this is my first Zoom meeting ever, so if I mess something up, that's but so this was also my first building ever built, the first time I ever applied for a variance. I've learned a lot in this process, and when the building was approved through Bernalillo County and through PNM, and was also inspected, permitted, and inspected, and it took quite a lot, and they notified me that my plans didn't meet specs. I had to go back to a architect who has since passed away, had to hire another architect and have it redone. I mean, I've tried to jump through all the hoops that I knew to jump through. I made a mistake on this, and I have the building, it is 6 feet approximately. It's not exactly straight, so it's approximately 6 feet from the back edge. It is not all the way to the fence. And I'm trying to make it right without having to tear down the whole addition on there. It is all concrete foundation, and I mean, it's very, very permanent, and and is also underneath power lines, the large power lines. I'm sure you know are back there. And then the backside is there'll never be neighbors or anything that there's nobody that I'm encroaching on back there. And I was under the impression that we'd also have access to that back road, when we bought the house, and that's since been closed off. And so that kind of changes the whole plans of the property, but I was kind of rolling with the punches. I did go and talk to all of my neighbors, talked to 5 neighbors to the east and 5 neighbors to the west, and went and explained the situation, explained what was going on. Nobody had any objections with what I talked about. I did talk to some others also on the street, and it's kind of been a good experience to meet all my neighbors, some of them that I haven't met yet, that I've waved to for years, but it's nobody, as far as I can tell, has complained to me personally. So I really don't want to have to tear the building down. My wife's a teacher, and with this whole COVID thing, we've been storing a lot of her teacher stuff in there since she's teaching online now. And it would be very difficult for me. And if there's any recommendations, I know that it's not an excuse that, there's 18 houses along there that 12 of them have buildings in the easement, 9 of them in the setback. And at the time that I spoke with PNM in Bernalillo County, they told me that no, there was no buildings under that PNM easement. And so I actually brought PNM out there to take a look, and they agreed, yeah, there was, and they made an exception for that. And Bernalillo County as well said that there was no permitted buildings in that rear easement. And so I just trying to make an example that I did, make an effort to try to play by these rules. Let's see. I don't feel it is an eyesore from the rear side. And I'm doing more to try to make it more appealing and less of an eyesore. But it definitely, in comparison, it is definitely not an eyesore on the road. Let's see. And if anyone has any advice for me, I welcome it. Like I said, this is all the first for me, but I'm learning a lot as I go. The building has been there. I haven't touched or done any construction on it for approximately 5-6 years. And the permit process, that was about 4 years ago that all that happened. And then, now here we are. I don't have, a whole lot of experience on the best way to go about this.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Any of the commissioners like to ask questions of the applicant? Commissioner Park?
Sure, I'll ask a question. Mr. Shepherd, good evening. So when was the structure in the back of your lot? I'm looking at page 56 of the packet. That gives me a good idea of it if anyone else wants to follow along. But so when was that structure built originally?
I want to say about 15 years ago. I don't have the original structure that was the very first structure that would have been what the village approved back probably 15 years ago, I would say. 2005, that sounds.
Did you own that property at that time?
Yes.
And did you get approval for the village for that structure?
Yes. Yeah, and we got renewed approval with the new plans, but somehow the setback with being in the setback wasn't caught at that time. So I didn't apply for a variance because I wasn't aware that. I thought I had to go to the village, get the approval. I didn't realize it was a variance application process. A lot I've learned since this whole thing began. And to put on top of it, it will never happen again. I don't plan on building anything else.
You've been disabused from it, I can tell.
Yeah,
And so the building is 30 by 40 feet back there? Is that what it is?
that was the original, yes.
Okay, and what is it now then?
There's about 11 feet on either side, maybe 14 feet on the south side and 11 feet on the north side, I believe.
Okay.
Approximately. I have the plans right here. Let me see I had an engineer come out and she had to re-engineer. She went through and made sure, said that basically my first plans did not meet the wind ratings, the current ones when they were, because the original building didn't even meet the current wind shear ratings. So she had to come out and show me all the things that I had to do to the building to basically upgrade it. And so I did all those things. And
How much of an overhead?
it is approximately 11 feet.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, 9 feet, 11 inches. So approximately 10 feet.
Can you live with anything smaller?
I mean, I could live with it, of course. I mean, but it's everything's in the whole foundation is concreted in, and it's got an elevated section on the back that actually has a drainage lip on it. So that's what actually keeps the flooding from the back road from coming in. And it's something I didn't realize was going to happen when the original shop was built. That whole area back there floods, and it's since this addition has been put on, it hasn't flooded since. It's making it smaller. I mean, I realize that financial reasons aren't reasons for a variance now, and but the amount, I would have to basically have the whole building re-engineered because it was engineered, she approved it the way that it was for, without changing. And then all of the posts, everything's set in concrete at slightly different elevations. I mean, it would be a major undertaking to move it, to make it any smaller.
Okay. All right. Well, Commissioner Eby, can I ask Planner, Planner Justice, sorry,
Yes, go
already
ahead
tired.
and
That's
ask if you need some clarification on something from the planner, go ahead.
Tiffany, can you give me the history of the approval on that back? I thought I read in the report that it was not approved, but did I confuse that with something else?
Commissioner Park, Commissioners, so the original building was permitted by the village. And since then, no other village permit has been issued. In 2016, there's a Bernalillo County building permit, which I believe the applicant's referring to. That's the one that has the as-built with the added drawings done by the architect. And so then those are the two permits that were done. One from the village and one from the county.
Right. So I guess, Mr. Shepherd, that's my question. If you did the very first one from the village, then why did you go to the county? Why didn't you come back to the village?
I did come back.
In 2016?
Yeah, and where's the camera? It's I got a permission on 2016, but I think there was a misunderstanding maybe because I think it was that the original was expired for Bernalillo, and they signed it, and I don't think, maybe it wasn't caught that there was not just the original plans, that there was an addition to it, because it was I don't see how it would have otherwise gotten a signature.
Okay. And
I think that must have been what happened.
so, Planner Justice, I guess I'm not trying to be obtuse, but I don't understand. How is it? I just don't, I'm having a disconnect. I don't understand how that works then.
Right. So Commissioner Park, Commissioners,
Yeah.
the applicant's correct. So our database has it where there's only one permit that was issued. I'm assuming at this point that it was assumed to be the same building that was permitted back in 2005 because there's no new record made for the new building. Our normal building permit process is before plans are approved by Bernalillo County, they're approved by the village, specifically for zoning. And then they're taken to Bernalillo County Bernalillo County will handle building inspections and certificates of occupancy. So usually for any building that happens, it is approved by the village and then by Bernalillo County.
I understand. So the miscommunication is that someone somehow somewhere thought it was the original residence, not a new building or edifice. Is that basically what we're saying?
I believe so, yes.
My wife was pointing out to me that it was the day before Thanksgiving, that it was the renewal was signed, and that not that it's, you know, it could have been it was a rush that it got looked at, you know, that it was it does have a signature from the village, but it doesn't have, you know, the proper variance approval apparently, because well, we're here.
Okay. I got to think about this one.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
No, I want to think about it. I got to read a little bit more, but thank you.
So, Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
when I drove by or rode by on my bike the other day, it looks like the overhang goes right up to the fence. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. No, I mean, you walk through there, you will get definitely rained on. It's not exactly straight to the property line. The building is straight, but the gap there isn't exactly even, but it's I would say about 5 feet on one end and six feet or so on the other. And it's definitely the overhang does not go to the fence, but they're the same materials. They're both, you know, galvanized metal.
Yeah. How tall is that fence?
Approximately 8 feet, I would say.
Okay. And are you running a business out of there, or what are you using that building for?
I'm one man, one technician air conditioning shop, basically. I use the shop is my personal shop, but I keep my work vehicles. I have my work van and a backup van in case my van breaks down. And then if anyone's looking for a truck, I have a truck or two that I need to get rid of, or I'm in the process of getting rid of.
Okay. When I looked from the east, it looks like, that looks like an overhang. But when I looked from the west, it looks like a solid wall there.
It's basically three-sided. It's open on the east side.
It's just open on one side. Yeah. And so I'm looking at the photo of November 2015. And
Okay.
I think Ms. Justice.
Must have light view or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
62 of the packet.
And Ms. Justice, you were pointing out, I think the one that was taken April 2006, which doesn't show the overhang. That's the original building. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then in November 2009, I guess the overhang still wasn't there. It was sometime between 2009 and 2015.
Chair Eby, commissioners, November 2009 was the addition on the south side of the building.
On the south side, okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, I just wonder, Mr. Shepherd, have you investigated the possibility of using gutters to keep the rain out? Or
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I mean, I'm still investigating the possibility of gutters. Just though it's, you know, there's a large amount of water that pools back there in the back shop. It no longer comes into the shop, but yeah, I mean, it's not the gutter. It's not so much the water off of the building that's coming in the shop. It's the water from the back road that was coming in, and I built a stem wall there, and there's a fairly a fair large amount of water that retains back there during heavy rains. And it used to flood in, the whole back road used to flood in. And, you know, I've got it pretty well taken care of as far as the flooding issue. And, you know, I don't plan on doing anything else, especially without village permission.
What's the back road? You referred to it twice. Is it the side road from the street?
It's actually, so I get from my neighbors have conflicting statements on it. Some of them say that we actually own that road, but we can't use it because it's a public utility access. Other people have told me it's a New Mexico DOT road. Some people say it's a Bernalillo County road. It's basically to service the power lines. It's not really a road. It actually is closed off. It used to everybody used to have access to their back lot through there, and it's been closed off since.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Mr. Shepherd?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
This would be
Stevie.
something for Director Justice to clarify, but if we were to enforce this or have you modify your building to be compliant, first of all, you'd only be removing this overhead canopy of your building, or to modify that in such a way. And I think Director Justice might be able to clarify this, you wouldn't be required necessarily to remove any flat work, concrete footings that are already in place, right? It would just be area, you know, anything that's rising out of the ground vertically. In which case that could help with your drainage. That's just something I thought of.
Actually, it would probably make it worse because let me see if I can find a picture of the footing that kind of shows you why it helps. I know it's here, but well, it might be easier to explain it than it is to find it. What it is the shop and the addition are on one level, and then it steps up and goes out and then goes down, and the outside wall of the north wall of that addition overlap that. And so that makes basically a barrier that if the roof was removed there, then that would allow basically all of the water to flood directly in. Then I would have an even worse problem. If that wall was moved even a foot, it would be a much worse flooding issue. So
Thank you, Mr.
But aren't
Shepherd.
you saying, sorry, aren't you saying
Yeah.
that most of the water was coming in not from your overhang, not from your roof, but from the back?
yeah, a large amount of it. But I mean, if that was moved, now there would be the water from the overhang, and it still comes in some from the back. It's just enough that it's tolerable. It hasn't penetrated the shop because of the overhang and the amount that actually, what happens is the water runs off and then drains off onto the to the gap that's in there, the 5 foot, 6 foot gap that's in there, onto the sidewalk there, and drains into the pond on the other side of the road, basically.
Okay, any other questions of either Director Justice or Mr. Shepherd, the applicant? Okay, thank you, Mr. Shepherd. The floor is now closed for comments. Or sorry, we're not closing the floor for comments yet. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this application? In favor of the application?
I'll be putting in Joe Craig.
Okay.
Commissioner, trustees, Commissioner
Yes, please state your name
Joe Craig.
and address.
I was concerned when you were closing the meeting. I am speaking.
No, sorry.
Opposition.
Please state your name and address, and then Attorney Winter will swear you in.
Thank you. Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito, Northwest.
Mr. Craig, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
My right hand's raised. I do.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Chairman Eby, I am speaking in opposition to this matter.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask again if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of it, and then we'll come back to you, Mr. Craig. Thank you. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Maybe you can stay, Mr. Craig.
I am letting Lori Marshall in.
Okay, can we have Mr. Craig stay, or will you have to let him in later?
He can stay.
Okay, thank you. Was it Ms. Marshall? Lori? Mr. Craig,
Yes.
could you mute yourself? Thank you. Is this Ms. Marshall?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Lori Marshall, 713 Calle del Pajarito.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Winter, please swear in Ms. Marshall.
Ms. Marshall, can you please raise your right hand?
I am.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So I would actually like to just say that there are so many things going on in this street that are out of control. And we've lived here for 15 years, almost 15 years. And I understand the spirit of the zoning on the back of the lots. And I understand that just because something's there and it was grandfathered in doesn't make set a precedent. But none of us can see out of the back of our properties. And walking along, I walk along that path behind there, and the building that you're talking about is probably the most well-kept, clean, and organized of any on the street. And I have much more concern about everything that's happening on the front side of our street with broken down vehicles, things parked in the street, people dumping wastewater in the street. And I would just ask that you all, if there's a way to focus on those things that really impact those of us that live on this street. Those things are so much more impactful. So that's it. I just, from someone living on the street, what's happening along the bike path is, and especially with this building, it is well kept, it is orderly, and it seems to me that the focus is kind of in the wrong place for those of us that live on this street.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Marshall. I hear you, and there is a procedure for making complaints to the village, and perhaps you'd like to take that opportunity. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of the application?
I've received no hands raised.
Okay, then we'll move on to Mr. Craig, who has already stated he wants to speak in opposition. And I think you have already given your name and address, but I don't think you were sworn in yet. Is that?
Yes,
Am I
I've been
remembering
sworn
that
in
correctly?
by Attorney Winter. So, Chairman, may I proceed?
Yes, proceed.
Thank you. I'm Joe Craig. I live at 505 Calle del Pajarito. Scott was a neighbor. He no longer lives in the house. This is one of the numerous unlicensed businesses that we have on Calle del Pajarito. Scott did not talk with me. We've talked in the past about neighborhood issues. My understanding that his mother-in-law lives in the house. This is a RMS construction. He's licensed in the city of Albuquerque. There's no village business license. and there's numerous trucks from his businesses going up and down our street. The property in the back that he's talking about is open space owned by the village and the state of New Mexico, along with our bike path, the City of Albuquerque bike path. All of the trespass back there was illegal and was shut off at the urging of Tim McDonough, who was the Village of Los Ranchos Planning and Zoning Administrator. A lot of abuse back there. As Lori, who's one of our neighborhood association members, stated, there has been continual abuse in the front side as well as on the back side of these properties. I don't know where the flooding is that Scott's talking about, but if it's coming off his building, he should address that. It's open space back there that we were trying to keep vegetated, and the people, some of the neighbors that are using it for a construction road have destroyed some of the grasses that were revegetated by the state of New Mexico. Scott's a licensed contractor, from what I can gather, and should know about this planning and zoning permits. I'm just disappointed that he's claiming that he lives in the neighborhood and he doesn't live there. We've sent in numerous complaints to the Village of Los Ranchos. As of today, I left a message with Jennifer for Planner Justice and sent a letter detailing the 5 businesses that are operating in our neighborhood illegally without license. None have business license and none are paying gross receipts tax to the Village of Los Ranchos. So I would urge that the village deny this variance. I mean, it's already been denied. So, I mean, one of my main questions is why this is before the Planning and Zoning Commission again. It was denied by you back 2 years ago, and any appeal should have gone to the trustees. Thank you.
Lynn, you're muted. Lynn, you're on mute. Hold on.
I had my phone was ringing in the background. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Mr. Shepherd, you'll have a chance to respond. Anyone wants to speak in opposition?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Kiko. Mr. Shepherd, would you like to respond to some of the comments that have been made by the other speakers?
Yes. I do have a home occupation license in the Village of Los Ranchos, and I do have wherever I do business I have business licenses wherever I have to do business. I do it at the customer's home. So if the home I'm working on is in Albuquerque, then I have to have an Albuquerque business license, a Bernalillo County business license, a Torrance, Los Ranchos. I have several business licenses for the homes, but I do have a home occupations for Los Ranchos. I also do live at the address right now with COVID. My father-in-law I help take care of my mother-in-law who's disabled. With COVID, she is out of work. And so he is able to stay home right now. And it doesn't make sense for me to be in the home when I'm out potentially bringing something home to them. So have been staying in this recently in a camper I'm under quarantine right now because of a possible exposure last week, but that's unrelated. I have spoken, there are other neighbors that would like to speak in my favor, but are not, I'll say technically able. They're mostly older and either don't have computers or don't understand how to do a Zoom meeting and I didn't want to go into their homes to help them, but Carol Williams right next door did write a letter for me, but she thought I was wanting to add on to the building, so I didn't submit the letter, but I'm sure she would. Shirley, I spoke with many of the neighbors yesterday, and all of them were fully in agreement that it wasn't an issue. And the previous application that Joe was talking about, I did not know that I was able to be at the meeting. I didn't know that I was supposed to be at the meeting the last time. And so, like I said, it was the first time I'd gone through all this, and this was all after the fact. Is nothing has been built since then, and nothing has changed. This is just the first chance it's basically come up to be able to apply for this.
Okay.
I know that there are several neighbors on the street that there are some complaints on the street, and that there are several neighbors that Joe has made life difficult for. Some of them I can understand. Some of them are very, very minimal. I mean, minimal stuff. I don't want to point things out because some of them were
Let's try to stay focused on the relevant issue here.
Okay.
About the variance. We are running a little late, and we have several more hearings. So is there anything further that you'd like to say about the variance?
No. I mean, if there's any questions.
Any other questions for Mr. Shepherd? All right. The floor is now closed for comments. Sorry, I jumped the gun earlier. And is there a motion?
I'll move to deny variance 20-11.
Okay. And is there a second?
I will second the motion.
All right. Commissioner Seavey moved to deny the application for variance, and Commissioner Berenson seconded the motion. Now, is there any discussion among the commissioners?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Seavey.
So it's our role to follow the ordinances. That's what we are here for. And I just did not see, there was no proving of the hardships, and it just didn't meet the criteria, from a letter of the law perspective. And for those reasons, that's why we denied it.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Park.
Thank you. So I agree with Commissioner Seavey on that. I frequently have voted to deny variances that I would have liked to have granted, but as the Planning and Zoning Commission, we're constricted to the application of the ordinance to the facts as presented to us. And in this case, Mr. Seavey is correct. Commissioner Seavey is correct, as the facts as presented to us do not warrant or justify a granting of the variance. My only tiny modicum of hesitation is the potential confusion that occurred whenever it was in 16. I don't feel like I know enough about that, but again, I think that could, I just don't know enough about it, but that is my only small, minute reservation on that. I just, yeah.
I'm a little confused about that too, but I think that by 2016, everything was done. And so, the overhang was completed and was already in place. So I don't see that it's really all that relevant that we clear up that confusion. Any other comments? So when we're voting on a motion to deny, I think we've been told it's important to make findings, and Commissioner Seavey made some, and Commissioner Park made some, and I'd just like to add that let's see, the variance is not in conformance with the goals and policies of the master plan. Even though it's not contrary to the public interest, a literal enforcement of this section will not result in unnecessary hardship. I guess that's already been said. All right, any other comments? All right, we'll take a roll call vote on the motion to deny the variance. Commissioner Christensen.
I'm going to say yes, meaning denial.
All right, thank you. I think that's correct. Commissioner Park. You're muted.
Yes, sorry, apologize.
All right, thank you.
Vote yes,
Commissioner,
vote yes on the denial.
all right, thank you. Commissioner Seavey,
Yes.
Commissioner Berenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eby, yes. All right, the motion carries unanimously. The motion was to deny the application for variance. And let the record show that the public hearing item number 4B, the request by Scott Shepard for a variance, is formally closed. Thank you to all the people who came here to speak this evening. I know it's sometimes difficult, especially if you haven't done Zoom before, but we appreciate your presence. All right, let's move on to the next public hearing, which is 4C, HO 562, a request by Isaiah Connick for a home occupation permit and license with an amended condition of approval to allow for a service vehicle greater than 1 ton on the premises in the R2 zone in the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 616 Gardunio Road Northwest and is legally known as Track 2D Easement Survey within Tracks 1 through 17, lands of Clark and Cummins, within projected section 16 T11N R3E NMPM, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, as filed in the office of the Bernalillo County Clerk on March 17, 1994. The property contains 0.19 acres, more or less. Any commissioners who will recuse from this hearing? All right. Director Justice, may we have your planning report, please?
Chair, Commissioners, this case is a home occupation that would involve a 12-ton towing truck. The business is residential or consensual towing, and all activity would occur outside of the property. The applicant wouldn't bring any towed vehicles to the property. The only presence of the business really is the towing truck, which would be parked on the property outside of business hours, basically just overnight. And so this application received no adverse comments during the 15-day public notice period. And so typically, with no adverse comment in compliance with the conditions of approval, this is administratively approved. However, this business would involve an activity that is contrary to one of the conditions, and so this is forwarded to the Commission for your all decision. The applicant is requesting an amended condition of approval for A and B. Any heavy equipment, trucks, vehicles, which are not normally associated with residential use, which may be used directly or indirectly in the home occupation, shall not be stored or parked on public streets or residential property. With specific approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission, there shall be permitted no more than 2 service vehicles used in the conduct of the business upon the premise at any one time. A service vehicle is a car, SUV, pickup truck, or panel van. And then there shall be no idling vehicles nor diesel trucks greater than 1 ton permitted on the premises. And so this would be an amended condition for A and B. So the properties are all zoned R2 surrounding this and are all in the 4th Street character area. As for the conformance with the other 10 or the other 9 conditions of approval, this home occupation application does conform. It's only in this one case, condition 4A and B. And so a possible reason for why this restriction or this condition exists is there is a section in our code on trucks and commercial vehicles which prohibit vehicles with a load capacity over 5 tons from driving on village roads and vehicles with a load capacity over 2 tons from driving on village roads at night. Vehicles over the load capacity are allowed for local deliveries and services on any road at any time, such as UPS package delivery and garbage collection. Generally, these vehicle trips are not as frequent as the daily trips that would be associated with this proposed business. Also, the vehicle weight itself is not the prohibiting factor in that section of the code. Rather, it's the load capacity it can carry. There is a slight difference between the two. The load capacity added with the weight of the vehicle is the gross weight of the vehicle. So there's just some slight different technical terms in the home occupation language and the other section on trucks and commercial vehicles. Our typical language for amendments to conditions of approval are that there are 3 criteria. The first is that the condition is necessary. The intent of this condition is necessary because combined with the 10 negligible trips per day allowed for a home occupation, the presence of a large heavy vehicle on a residential road can create nuisance throughout the day with noise level activity that's associated with the trips, like unloading or loading, and wear on the road. In this case, the flatbed tow truck would have an impact that would create nuisance that's intended to be stopped by the condition. While the number of vehicle trips would be daily rather than multiple times per day, the daily use could create wear on the road more quickly than the weekly use associated with garbage trucks or package delivery trucks. The second criteria is that the condition does not impede the ability to effectively utilize the real property. Home occupations are commercial uses that are allowed as long as they abide by the conditions of approval. So the commercial use has minimal negative impact on the surrounding residential properties. Without this home occupation, the property can still be used for residential and agricultural purposes. Allowing this amended condition can create more of a burden on the neighborhood. Gardunio Road is an access easement that's shared by all the property owners in the subdivision. So maintenance is shared and falls on those property owners. And this property is further along Gardunio Drive. The truck would be driven down most of this road. So daily use by heavy vehicle can create wear and tear more quickly. The third criteria is that circumstances necessitating the condition have changed since the conditions were imposed. In this case, not to the extent that should allow the weight of this kind of vehicle. While the section on trucks and commercial vehicles prohibits vehicles based on load capacity, the home occupation prohibits vehicles by total weight. So again, load capacity does not equal total weight. The total weight is the weight of the vehicle plus the load capacity. And many personal vehicles can weigh more than 1 ton. A large personal pickup truck can weigh up to 2.8 tons, and the average car already weighs between 1.7 to 2 tons. So a vehicle that's allowed for personal use is now prohibited when it's affiliated with the business, and that 1 ton restriction is unreasonable for any home occupation involving a vehicle. If the vehicle proposed had a weight closer to those that are normally driven on residential roads or had a load capacity closer to the limitations in our trucks and commercial vehicles ordinance, or made fewer trips per week, similar to a garbage truck or a delivery truck, then it would have less wear on the road. If this tow truck were a light duty tow truck, which weighs around 5 tons, the argument could be made that though it exceeds the weight limitation of the home occupation ordinance, would have a load capacity that fits within our commercial trucks and vehicles ordinance. However, in this case, the flatbed tow truck would greatly exceed both the 1 ton weight limitation for home occupations and the load capacity limitations in commercial trucks and vehicles. A 12-ton flatbed tow truck can have a load capacity of 12 tons, which is more than twice the limitation in commercial trucks and vehicles. A vehicle of this weight will cause more wear on the road with daily use, and it is a purely commercial vehicle that would wear on a residential street. And so with that, the department recommends denial of HO number 562 for a home occupation permit and license with an amended condition of approval to allow for a service vehicle greater than 1 ton on the premises in the R2 zone in the 4th Street character area, with the following findings. That contrary to 9.2.25D1A, the condition is necessary. B, the condition does not impede the ability to effectively utilize the real property. And C, the circumstances necessitating the condition have changed since the conditions were imposed, however, not to the extent that should allow this weight of vehicle. If the commission does approve of this home occupation with the amended condition, the department recommends that the condition be amended to allow for an empty 12-ton tow truck on the premises, and that in accordance with section 9.2.25D4C4A, the Planning and Zoning Commission approves of a service vehicle used in the conduct of the business on the premises. And public notice requirements have been met. I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Director Justice. Any questions from the commissioners for Director Justice?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Seavey.
Director Justice, the intent is to park this vehicle off street. Just looking at this on Google Earth, it seems like a pretty narrow gate opening. Might be able to get a tow truck inside of there, but the intent is to store the vehicle off street, right?
Yes, the vehicle would be stored on the property.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Planner Justice, what you're saying is if we do approve of the tow truck being stored on the property, that you would definitely want it to be not a loaded truck. Did I get that right?
Yes, the intent, Commissioner Behrens and Commissioners, the intent of the applicant is already to bring back an empty tow truck, but in this case, ensuring that it would be an empty tow truck would prevent more weight on the road than what would be allowed with just the tow truck.
Thank you.
Do we know how much the truck weighs? I may have missed this without without the load on it.
Chair Eby, Commissioners, it's 12 tons.
It weighs 12 tons? The truck itself?
According to the application, yes.
Okay.
If the applicant can clarify and have it at a lower weight or a higher weight or a different weight,
Okay.
that'd be welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Planner Director Justice? All right, is the applicant present?
The applicant is being let into the meeting.
Thank you, Kiko. Mr. Connick, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Isaiah Connick, address 616 Gardeno Drive, Northwest.
All right, Attorney Winter, please swear in Mr. Connick.
Mr. Connick, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Connick, and speak about your application.
So I'm applying to see if I get a home occupation license. I'm trying to open up a towing company. The tow truck at my house does weigh 12 tons, unloaded. It will be used in and around the city of Albuquerque, Los Ranchos, Bernalillo, anything neighboring cities. Throughout the day, I'll be out between 8 to 7 p.m. So the truck would only be parked at my residence from about 7 p.m. till 8 a.m. the next morning. Unloaded, I'm only going to be doing consensual tows, so towing in between someone's house to their mechanic shop or tire shop, wherever they need to be dropped off at. I know someone had a question about if the vehicle was going to be parked in the truck was going to be parked in my yard. My gate is wide enough to where I could actually back my tow truck up into my front yard. It's a gravel yard that's fully gravel to where nothing would happen if rain was to wash anything out.
Okay. Any commissioners have questions of the applicant, Mr. Connick?
Sir, this is Rachel Berenson. You don't have anywhere else to park this truck, or is this the only option for you?
Unfortunately, this is the only option for me. This is my residence. I actually left my job trying to open up a tow company, but I'm only doing it privately right now, sole proprietorship, until eventually I can maybe purchase a property and do impounding and other things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
So the impounding is opposed to what did you call this consensual towing?
Yes,
And so impounding is, I
non-consensual.
understand. Any other questions? Okay, is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the application? In favor of the application?
I have no raised hands.
Okay, is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition?
No raised hands.
Okay, then if there are no further comments from the commissioners at this time, we will, I'll close the floor for comments. Is there a motion? We need to have a motion.
Okay, I'm gonna move to approve this application with the amended condition that the department recommends that the 12-ton tow truck may only be on the premises unloaded.
Is there a second?
Can I ask, when you mean unloaded, that means without towing another truck? Is that what or vehicle? Is that what you mean, Rachel?
Yeah, so it would only be the 12-ton truck. It wouldn't be the additional weight of it having, you know, another truck or a car on it. Yeah.
Can I ask before? On that, I have a.
If you have a clarification question, we
It's
have
really-
to have a second really to the motion unless you're trying to clarify it. And then we'll discuss. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay, so the motion has been made to approve the home occupation with the condition as stated by Commissioner Berenson that the truck only be parked empty. And the motion was seconded by Commissioner Park. Okay, now let's have the discussion.
So I guess my question really is for Tiffany. Is like, can we grant the variance and put an expiration date on it? So the applicant talked about trying to get his own shop and the own stuff, which I get. And I know that it's hard to start a business. And I know that, you know, during these economic times, it's even tougher. I think my preference would be that the vehicle not be parked on the street in general. But my real question is, you know, if he needs a year to get on his feet, I think that I'm okay with that more than just a variance that's permanently with the land. The other
Well,
thing is,
excuse me, this is not a variance application, it's for a home occupation license, but I'm
Right.
assuming you mean the same.
yeah, pardon me, I meant to use.
Okay, go ahead. You had another comment?
I did. You know, so I wonder, could we do it as for a period of time, the home occupation license you know, especially because while he's trying to get on his feet, I get that. That makes perfect sense to me. But I'd hate for that home occupation license to follow it in perpetuity or for an extended period of time, because I understand the concerns of the neighbors. So is that something we can do? I mean, because I will say, I didn't see that it met, quite frankly, the other criteria that are required under the ordinance. But go ahead.
So Commissioner Park, Commissioners, yes, so you could approve this with an expiration date. So just in general, home occupations are tied with the business, not necessarily the property. So if he were to move out and not have his home occupation there, it would naturally expire at that point. So it would only be valid for as long as he lived at that address and met the other criteria for the home occupation. Alongside that, if the commission would like to put a time frame condition on this application, you can. I guess I would just recommend asking the applicant if they would be okay with that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, can we ask the applicant if he's okay with that and what type of time frame he would think he would need?
Okay, I'm going to suspend the discussion on the pending motion and reopen the discussion. Is Mr. Koenig still here?
Stand by.
Mr. Koenig, did you hear the discussion? And I think the question is if the commission were inclined to grant this home occupation license for a limited time, is that something that you could live with? And if so, excuse me, how long would you need?
That is something I could live with if that's going to help my process. I don't know how long it would take. I would hope it would be a year, maybe no more than 2, but that would hopefully just be it.
Okay. I'm going to close the floor for comments unless someone has another question for Mr. Koenig.
Mr. Koenig, could you live with a year?
I had to, yes.
I mean, you always have the opportunity to come back.
Yes. I understand that, yes.
I don't know. I mean, that's just me spitballing. I have no idea what the other people think. They may.
Right. We haven't completed our discussion yet. So I'm going to reclose the floor for comments. Thank you, Mr. Koenig.
No problem.
And we'll go back to our discussion of the pending motion, which is a motion to approve the home occupation license with a condition that only the empty truck could be parked there.
Commissioner Eby, is there any way that I could move to amend my motion based upon the discussion that we all just had regarding time limitations and move
Yes,
to amend?
I think you can withdraw that motion. Is this, am I doing this right, Tiffany? Nan? Withdraw your motion and then amend it, or just amend it? How do we do that?
I think you can withdraw and restate.
Okay.
Then, so I would move to withdraw my previous motion and to restate my motion to approve the application with the condition that he only park his vehicle, that 12-ton tow truck on the premises during the hours that he specified from 7 until 8 in the morning or close thereof for a time of 1 year during which he is getting his business up and running.
Okay. All right, the motion is a little more complicated this time, so I'll try to restate it. Well, first of all, do we have a second for this motion?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the home occupation application with, it looks like 3 conditions. One being that the truck only be parked on the premises, not on the street, that it only be parked there for the time specified in the application, which is, I don't have the times in front of me, but basically after hours, overnight, and probably on weekends. And that the home occupation license would expire within 1 year from approval.
And that it be unloaded.
Oh, yes, right. That was,
Yes. That was the recommendation of planning planner.
okay. All right. Let's have discussion now.
Well, the reason that I moved to approve this home occupancy license is, as I think about it, and I think about how many USPS trucks are driving through the neighborhood and through the streets on an hourly and bi-hourly basis. And I think, wow, people ordering during this time of COVID has created more traveling of these ginormous, very, very heavy vehicles. This individual is starting a business. Yes, it is going to be, it is going to have an impact on the roadway, but I think it would be minimal, as it would only be, leaving in the morning and coming back at night. And I think that we've limited it to, a 1 year period in which he can hopefully grow his business to find a place to park that vehicle besides at his home. So those were the reasons that I moved to approve the application.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in? Commissioner Seavey, you look like you're getting ready to say something. You're unmuted.
Well, sure. Yeah, I do concur with Commissioners Park and Berenson. It seems like a good compromise, and yeah, well stated. I would agree with it.
Commissioner Christensen, you have any comments? Commissioner Park? No. Well, I disagree. I don't think that it's that minimal to have that large of a truck going down a small residential street twice a day and way in excess of any weight limitations that are allowed for home occupation or on the roads of Los Ranchos. And just because we have delivery trucks and garbage trucks that are using the roads, I don't think that's a good reason to carve out an exception in this case. So that's my comment. Any other comments? Okay.
I'm torn. I see both sides. I am so torn. Do we have to do it by roll call, me going first?
Yes, we do. We could come back to you.
Can you come back to me?
Okay. Commissioner, okay, so the motion has been made and seconded, and we'll do the roll call vote now. Commissioner Park?
I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Seavey?
Yes.
Commissioner Berenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eby, no. Commissioner Christensen?
No.
Okay. So the motion passes 3-2. And thank you to Mr. Koenig for your presentation. And we will let the record show that the public hearing item 4C, the request by Isaiah Koenig for a home occupation permit and license, is formally closed. All right, moving right along. We come to the last two items, which are really related, and it's past 8:45, and I'm thinking maybe we should have a short break here. Is anyone opposed to a 5-minute break?
No, ma'am.
Great.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thanks. 6A and 136B, MRGCD map number 27, situate in projected section 20, T11N R3E NMPM, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico. The property contains 12.29 acres, more or less. Now, there's no action by the commission on this sketch plat review. It's an opportunity to give general information and guidance for the proposal. The commission should advise the applicant in the following manners: if the proposal has merit, if the configuration would be acceptable, and if the commission sees difficulty in the site development conforming to the master plan and the zone code requirements. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves on this item? Okay. Director Justice, may we have the planning report?
Yes, Chair, Commissioners. Both supporting documents for this item and the next item are included with this item. They're the same at this point because they're both conceptual. They will each have separate documents for the preliminary and the final meetings. So for this subdivision, there's going to be 3 lots created from one 12-acre property. 2 of the lots would be net 1 acre, so subtracting any access easements, and these will be located at the east side of the property, east and south side of the property. The lots will have single-family residences, so there will be 3 single-family residences at this site. The conceptual site plan notes a 4th lot, which will not have a house. This has changed. The total lots proposed is 3, and that would not be a separate lot. As the subdivision involves more than 5 acres and creates more than 2 lots, this is considered a major subdivision. The owner is requesting a sketch plat review of their concept for subdividing the property as the first step in the major subdivision process. Following this is going to be 2 preliminary meetings, one before the commission and one before the board, and then a final meeting before the commission. Major subdivisions are required to go through the site development plan process, which is being done in the next agenda item. The properties to the north, south, east, and west are all zoned A1. And for the A1 requirements for these lots, most of these, other than the 1 acre net minimum size requirement, will be addressed in the building permits themselves after the subdivision and site development plan approval. Presently, the application complies with our subdivision requirements with a 30-foot wide access easement. However, there's no emergency turnaround shown yet. The fire marshal will address the size and the shape of the emergency turnaround, either a cul-de-sac or a Y shape or a K shape, but it will need to be shown on the plat with a minimum of a 40-foot radius. This will be required, of course, for the preliminary and the final. The 3 new lots are noted as 1 acre, but this could be net or gross. The net will have to be 1 acre. So as for the general information and guidance for the proposal, the 4 things that the chair mentioned, there's no variances required for this project. The proposal involves single-family residences and agriculture, both which are allowed in the A1 zone. Housing and agriculture are also supported in the master plan. And then mitigation for economic noise, glare, or odor effects on the adjoining properties. During construction, the applicants will be required to mitigate dust and potential stormwater pollution with a stormwater pollution prevention plan. Post-construction, the proposed uses do not appear to have negative effects on the adjoining properties or the community. The application for the sketch plat review is complete with all the required documents, and the public notice requirements have been met. I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Director Justice? So this is on the southeast corner of Rio Grande and Chamizal. Is that?
Chair Eby, Commissioners, yes, it's not at that corner exactly. It's, I believe, 1 or 2 properties south, but it is east of Rio Grande Boulevard. Right now they're putting up a fence, so you may be seeing some concrete posts that are going in right now.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for Director Justice.
Yes, Commissioner Seavey.
On the site plan, on the east side of the site, there's this circular form and it says line of existing hole. And in Google Earth, you can kind of see there's a significant depression there. It's just kind of curious to me, is there some kind of wetland environment there, or what's going on?
Commissioner Seavey, Commissioners, from what I understand, the previous property owner, or one of the previous property owners, was intending to put a pond back there. So they dug the hole, and actually some of the dirt was used to raise up the house that exists there. And there was never any water put into it. I believe there were trees the last time inside that hole.
And is the intent to keep this landform?
Commissioner Seavey, Commissioners, no, they would be filling in this hole, and that's where part of the house would be. I believe they would cover it mostly with wildflowers. At least that's what the site plan concept shows.
Any other questions for Director Justice? Is the applicant present?
Stand by.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, please state your name and address for the record, and then Attorney Winter will swear you in.
Okay, my name is Varese Simons. I'm at 286 Los Pinos Road in Santa Fe, 87507.
Ms. Simons, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Simons, and make your presentation.
Well, Commissioners and Chair and Director, I feel that Director Justice did a really adequate job of explaining our intent. I have nothing further to add at this time. And, you know, apart from that, this is intended to be a family compound, with the main owner being part of the 10 plus or minus acres, and then their children and grandchildren to live on the 1 acre lot, net 1 acre lots.
Okay. But I think the large lot will be only a little over 9 acres, because it has to be, each of the 3 lots that's being subdivided have to be net 1 acre. So, but just
Correct.
more or less. Yeah. Any questions or comments from the commissioners for Ms. Simons?
I've got a question.
Yes, Commissioner Park.
Hi, good evening.
evening.
What is your estimated time for completion of this project?
Well, we currently have in permit the garage, which is identified as proposed construction right now. And it's been accepted by the village and it's in Burnco presently. So we're hoping to start demo tomorrow on that. And then the main house is a remodel. That's an existing residence. And we are submitting for permit within this month. And then concurrently, we're hoping to build the 2 single family residences on the east of the property. So estimated time of construction is, I haven't gotten an exact timeline from the contractor, but I would assume it within 18 months.
And forgive me if I missed this. How large are going to be the structures on the other acres that you're building, or do you not know that yet?
No, I do know that. They're 3,000 square feet gross.
I think I misspoke earlier. You originally planned for 3 additional homes, but it's just 2 now. Is that?
Actually, I just made an error in the paperwork. I had incorrectly put 4 lots down. There's only to be 3 lots, and there's only to be 3 residences, 2 of which are new.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we're expected to give some guidance to the applicant about whether the proposal is meritorious and the configuration acceptable, and if we see any difficulties in the site development conforming to the master plan. Any comments on those issues?
I do have a comment.
Okay, Commissioner Seavey.
I think it's a nice looking site plan, and I think it plays off of what's in the latest 2035 master plan by highlighting agriculture, at the forefront of this property, visible right off of Rio Grande. I think that's excellent. I'd be curious to know, do you intend to maintain irrigation through the ditch or the acequia throughout the property? And I would imagine those grapevines might go on drip irrigation, but would there still be that flooded field that you see driving past on Rio Grande? That might be a little granular for right now, but I'm kind of curious.
Correct. The owners of the property are currently still using flood irrigation for the eastern portion where there's that big hole. In addition, they have a small garden there, and then they're also using their flood irrigating the front part, and the intention is to continue to flood irrigate in tandem with a sprinklered system for the wildflower area. We are currently exploring trying to create a wetland habitat as well to the wildflowers. But nothing yet is, we haven't figured it out yet, but we are looking. They do plan on using the flood irrigation. They actually really are happy with that and hope to continue to do that.
Thank you. And that's fantastic to hear.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the proposal. I think it has merit. I think the configuration is acceptable, and it seems to comply with the goals and policies in the master plan. So I'm looking forward to walking along that ditch some more and seeing the progress. Anyone else?
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may ask questions of us too.
I just want to make sure that we are in our plat and establishing, so the net the net 1 acre lot restriction, we are not allowed, that's not including any easements, access easements. So the lots that are proposed at the east, the new lots, need to be 1 net acre, which does not include any of the easements or the roads.
I'll ask Director Justice to answer that question.
Thank you.
Yes, so it's only access easements. So any public utility easements, those don't count towards cutting into the gross. Net 1 acre for us is 1 acre without any access easements. So it would likely just be a little bit more than 1 acre.
Okay, and does that include driveway access?
Only if the driveway itself is part of the access easement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments about this proposal? Okay, well, we'll formally close the discussion on this item and move on to the next one, which
Sorry,
yes, Director Justice, what do we need?
Chair Evie, commissioners, I guess just in the spirit of things, if there's any members of the public who are wishing to speak on this item, could we let them speak? Again, it's not really in favor or in opposition, so just those who are wishing to speak on the item.
Okay, I will ask that question next then. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this proposal?
I have several hands raised.
Okay, great. We'll take them one at a time. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Looks like Mr. Craig is up first.
Hi.
Mr. Craig, you have previously been sworn, and could you just repeat your name and address for us?
Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito Northwest.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. I am president of the Friends of Los Ranchos, Inc. We are a 501c4 nonprofit dedicated to preserving open space, cultural heritage, and agricultural preservation of the village of Los Ranchos. I like what you've done here. This is an important property. We have been watching this for quite some time, hoping that it would not go into a major subdivision. I'm really pleased with what you're doing. One thing I would ask is that you and the owners look at a conservation easement, and that's one thing that the Friends of Los Ranchos are promoting. There could be substantial tax credits by putting a conservation easement on this and protect this property. I think it's a very important property to the village. I think the house certainly is a significant architectural property, and we'd like to see that protected as we can. I'm pleased that your office is on it. It looks like a really nice treatment of a great property.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Anyone else that wishes to speak about this application? Or I should say, next speaker.
Stand by. James, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Please state your name and address for the record, and Attorney Winter will swear you in.
Yes, my name is James Colbert, and I own the property to the west at 7313 Rio Grande. And I just had one question about the proposal.
Mr. Colbert, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Colbert, can you hear me?
Yes, I have. I've raised my right hand.
All right, thank you so much. Do you swear to
Sure.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Colbert.
Yes,
You had a
the only question I had was, could the lot one, assuming this proposal was approved, ultimately could lot one through a subsequent request be replanned further and subdivided further, or would this approval hold in perpetuity?
Yeah, I will ask Director Justice to answer that question.
Mr. Colbert, commissioners, so yes, with the acreage itself, the large remaining portion could be subdivided again in the future. It would have to go through this same process because it would still involve more than 5 acres. And even if it only created 2 lots, it would be involving more than 5 acres. So it would be a major subdivision that would go before the commission and board in this process again. Unless there are other restrictions on the land, such as deed restrictions, that would prevent that already.
Okay,
Does
thank
that
you.
answer your question, Mr.
Yes,
Colbert?
it does. The only further question I would have is, as part of the proposal, would it be possible to restrict that from happening in the future, regardless of what is on the deeds?
Director Justice.
Mr. Colbert, commissioners, I think it would be out of the place of the commission to restrict possible development, I guess, without any particular reason for restricting it that would, like if there was a health or safety hazard, that could be a justifiable reason for it. But typically, the commission or the board would not be able to restrict the property owner from developing on the property if they meet all of our other requirements in terms of acreage and going through this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have another speaker lined up?
Joe Craig has raised his hand again.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak other than Mr. Craig?
That is the only hand raised right now.
Okay. Go ahead and let Mr. Craig back in. Yes, Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. I believe, just in response to the question, that this property is subject to the 280-foot setback along Rio Grande. I believe it's from Chamisal south. That would be something that needs to be addressed. Additionally, and that's one of the reasons we would like to see a conservation easement put on that. But the village has a legislated a 280-foot setback along Rio Grande on both sides. That is important, preserving the view sheds and the open space along Rio Grande. There is also a pueblo on the north side of this property that I'm sure you're aware of, but that will need to be addressed. And there were substantial conversations, I believe, with the previous planning and zoning director about the pueblo and the sites around that. I assume that's why you're moving more to the south side of the property. And the property to the west, I think, has some deed restrictions on it, which might be something to look at as well, as far as acreage that were put on it by the Robs.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. And so, Kiko, there are no other people that wish to speak about this application?
No other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So I'll close the floor for comments now and see if we have any further discussion among the commissioners. Any advice?
I guess, Madam Chair, I'd only say it's a beautiful piece of property, and I've ridden my bike both on Rio Grande, and there's a great ditch bank. If I'm sure most people have done it, but that ditch bank that runs behind it is really awesome.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I would say is that it's a great, beautiful piece of property, and that Rio Grande corridor, right where that property is really the flagship of the village, and encourage you to just honor that. And I think you are. I don't mean to say, I'm saying it all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, I'm not, I think you are. Just continue to honor it. That's my point. I think you are doing it. I said it. I think I started to mess that up. I apologize. But just continue to honor
I'm
that.
sure no offense was taken, and I agree with you,
Sorry.
Commissioner Park.
It's close to my bedtime.
Okay. Then I think we're done with this, the sketch plat review. So let's move on now to the site development plan for this. And this is item 4E, SDP 20-05, a request by Don Nieto Goi and Robert Goi for a sketch plat review for a residential site development plan for a development in the A1 zone in the South Rio Grande character area. Property is located at 7200 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest, is legally known as tracks 136A and 136B MRGCD map number 27, situate in projected section 20T 11N R3E and MPM, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico. Property contains 12.29 acres more or less. So again, there's no action by the commission on the sketch plat review. It's an opportunity to give general information and guidance for the proposal. The commission should advise the applicant on the same three issues: whether the proposal has merit, whether the configuration would be acceptable, and if we see any difficulty in the site development conforming to the master plan and the zone code requirements. The Director Justice, may we have your planning report on this item, please?
Certainly, Chair, Commissioners. So site development plans are required for major subdivisions. The owner is requesting a sketch plat review as part of the first step in the site development plan process. Following this is a preliminary meeting in front of the commission and a final meeting in front of the board. The site development plan has to have the requirements of the site development plan section of the code, but the building designs themselves do not need to be finalized, as this will be confirmed in the building permit process. So unlike commercial projects that tend to be developed by one party and are subject to design regulations and commercial zones, in residential subdivisions, lots can be created and sold to buyers without home designs confirmed. So the requirement at the minimum for the site development plan is to show the building envelopes compliant with the setbacks. The other requirements such as height, permeability will be addressed with the final building plans. So if the applicant does show potential designs with elevations and building footprints, this can definitely go before the commission and the board, and it is preferred, but it's not required, and there's no design regulations for residential buildings. And the applicant would not be held to the proposed building designs shown in the site development plan process should they change. However, they will be required to comply with all of the A1 zone requirements unless there is a variance. The current site plan shows landscaping, buildings, access, and setbacks, and the application is complete with all the required documents, and public notice requirements have been met. I stand for any questions.
Okay. How is this different from the sketch plat review? I'm having trouble distinguishing.
Chair, Commissioners, this is also a sketch plat review. So these are two different items. One is the subdivision and then one is the site development plan. Both go through a process of sketch concept review, preliminary approval, and then final approval. So these are both just coinciding at the same time. And in this case, because it's conceptual, the plans look the same. In future meetings, the subdivision plat will be for the subdivision application, and then the site development plan showing the landscaping, the buildings, that will be part of the site development plan application.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Other questions for Director Justice? And does the applicant wish to make any further statements?
No, I believe everything's been covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Simons. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak about this item 4E, the site development plan?
I have no hands raised at this time.
Okay. Well, we'll close the floor for comments, and let's have discussion among the commissioners. Anyone want to make any comments about this? Seems to comply with the A1 requirements. Doesn't require variances. During construction, they'll be required to mitigate dust and potential stormwater pollution. Any other comments?
Okay. It's just kind of almost a design comment. The two proposed houses are called the family court. They seem to almost play off of that existing hole or pond, but the pond will be filled in. So it's just interesting that there's this design driver that's there right now that's going to go away. Just a kind of a random thought. But it also creates this nice space. So I don't know. It's an interesting plan. I think it has merit.
Yeah. I agree. Anyone else wish to speak? Hearing none, I'll formally close discussion for item 4E. And thank you, Ms. Simon, for coming and participating, and the two speakers that we had as well. We appreciate your attendance and your comments. All right. We are now, it's not even 9:30, and we're on to the next item of old business. There is no old business. Number 6, new business. We do have some new business, and this is discussion of the variance language that we have talked about many times in the past. And I really want to commend Commissioner Justice for pulling together the history of how this ordinance came to be and how it's changed over time, and the grammatical changes and substantive changes and things that being added in and taken out. And I think you've done a really good service for us. Good job of laying that all out. I don't know that we can come to any final recommendation this evening. I did look at it in pretty much detail because it's something that I care about. I think we do need to change yet again the language or the grammar, punctuation. and so forth. But I don't want to belabor the discussion. I can see people are tired, and I'll just say of the options that you have put forward, I can see a merit in one of the options, well, several of them. I'm not sure which one I prefer, but I don't agree that criterion number 6 is completely redundant, because even though the beginning of the ordinance talks about compliance with the master plan, I think criterion number 6 kind of adds kind of the concept of substantial justice, because it says, where is it? I think I'm getting tired too. I can't find the actual language here. Can you point the language to me, Tiffany?
Yes, Chair, Commissioners, criteria number 6 is on page 96 of 100. The alleged hardship is such that relief is justifiable in accordance with the goals and policies of the master plan. And actually, before we get going any further, I just would like to say that by no means should consensus on the path to take for the variance language be agreed upon today. Substantial changes would need to take time to be brought before the board for their input and decisions. However, if there are some minor grammatical changes that would clarify things for the commission, we can also discuss those.
I think you've identified the problem being that those last 2 criteria are so general that they can kind of overwhelm the more specific criteria. But I hadn't even thought of the fact that, you know, there are other types of variance that we've discussed, you know, like fence height and FAR maximum and things like that don't fit any of the first 4 criteria. And also the fact that the variance language applies both to residential and commercial properties, I think is problematic. So there was some effort back in, was it 2003, to insert, you know, different standard for the VC and C1 zones, and then that was removed. And I don't know. I'm curious if the Municipal League has like templates, or not templates, but suggested wording for things like this. You know, for municipal zoning ordinances and variances. Have you looked into that at all?
Chair, Commissioners, I have not, but that's something that I can definitely put on my to-do list.
Okay. Anyone else want to make any comments? I'm kind of babbling away here and not making much sense, so.
My only thought is we're
Commissioner
missing.
Christensen? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Karen. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say
Okay.
we're missing 2 members, so I'd hate this to be the
Yeah.
only time we discuss this.
Yeah, I'd like to bring it up again, and maybe when we're a little fresher. Commissioner Christensen, you have?
Commission, I was going to agree with you. I went through and I spent a lot of time going through this, and I do agree I was laughing because I kept going back to the hardship and the circular logic.
Circular.
I was just like, so I really, Ms. Justice, I really appreciate this document. It was very, very insightful. And I'm kind of going back and forth on some of the options. But I think you did a really, really good job. And I do agree with Commissioner Park too, is that I think we all need to be here to have this discussion.
Chair, Commissioners, I can definitely put this on the agenda for next meeting under old business.
Yeah.
And if we've got a long agenda, like, I'm not joking, like, I have 25 minutes till I turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah,
so
hopefully
I
we'll
would do a
have
special meeting if you want.
we'll have a half-hour meeting. You know, we had one a few months ago. We were done at 7:30. So if we have a shorter meeting, but also we will have had more time to digest some of this information and
right.
Or I make a suggestion too, because it is like right now, I wrote a little note here. Can we discuss this at a later time? Because it's very, very important. I think we all need to be fresh. And I know we all have a lot going on in our lives and in our agendas is maybe we make this at one time a separate meeting, like we did have a special meeting, and make it time, and then we dedicate the time to it. I know it's another commitment, but I think if we're going to look at this, we really need to spend the time and effort and reviewing it and making certain we're all comfortable with it. And Tiffany, Ms. Justice, I understand that this has to go through the board and everything like that. But I think this is something, when we're looking at variances, the hardship thing is something we always look at, and we're all going back and forth so much on it. And if we could make it a little bit more helpful for all of us, I think that would be a good thing. Because I struggle with it. I struggle with the hardship every time we go through it. So
Chair, Commissioners, if we can definitely talk about it a little bit tonight. I can put it on the agenda for old business at the next meeting. Right now it is a pretty quick meeting, knock on wood. So we may be able to discuss this next month in October. If that agenda fills up, and it's unlikely that we'll be able to meet and discuss this at the regular October meeting, I can contact you all for arranging a special meeting.
I think that's a good way to proceed. We'll try to get it on, excuse me, the next regular meeting, and then if that fills up, we'll think about a special meeting. Anybody else want to make any comments now?
I do have one for Director
Yes,
Justice.
Commissioner Seavey. Yeah.
This is a great effort. I need to dive in and take a closer look, and I'm glad we're going to keep talking about it. That's about it, actually. I do agree that, we should absolutely talk about this later.
I remember you had a question one time, Commissioner Seavey, at one of our variance requests, and you said, is the same standards for commercial as residential?
That's right. That did come up, and
yeah,
it would be interesting if the map changes how these variances are utilized. It'd be an interesting thing to discuss. Right now, it covers the entire village as far as I understand it.
Yeah. There was one comment I wanted to make, and that is, we could have a variance for parking. Is that something that this ordinance could do, to avoid that kind of terrible situation a couple months ago with, where the guy had to get a whole zone change just because he needed some extra parking? I mean, why can't we do that? It'd be so much simpler.
So commissioners, chair commissioners, a variance is, I guess, always an option for straying from any part of the code. And I guess sometimes that is the only option, bring it before the commission. Sometimes there are other means of bringing it before the commission. And I guess they could have come before the commission for a variance. But again, I guess just the question that we tend to ask applicants when they do consider a variance is, do you think you meet the hardship criteria? And some people will think that they do, and they will pursue with the variance, and some people would rather pursue another route. And
so that is, but wouldn't it be better if there was some actual mention in, maybe this isn't the place where it would be. I don't know.
So Chair,
and hardship would still be, sorry.
The original, one of the earliest variance languages did include things that weren't setbacks. They included things like parking and dimensions. But at that time, there wasn't any definition of hardship. So it was that, you could get a variance for parking, but there was no definition of what a hardship is. So we could think about doing a blend of the old variance language with the new, or just having different language that is more all-encompassing besides just setbacks.
Yeah. Okay. I think we should probably move on so that we can complete our agenda. We're almost done. Thank you very much, Planner Justice, for this document. It's great. And so next is the reports, and we have the Planning Department report by Director Justice.
So Chair, Commissioners, the department continues to operate remotely due to COVID. Our Jennifer Schilling's working primarily on the redesign and new processes for the magazine. She's also processing building permits and parcel permits. And she's now looking into quotes for a company to redesign the village's website, which would hopefully incorporate a payment portal, a payment and permit portal, which would actually be more cost effective than just business licensing software, which is what we were originally looking at. A permit portal will allow easier online permitting for all of our permits, not just business licenses. Keen Heinzelman is patrolling the village and working with property owners to bring their properties into compliance. He's also processing large building permits such as new residences and processing excavation barricade permits. I'm working with the village emergency manager, Jeff Phillips, on the hazard mitigation plan update. And I'm also drafting the annual MS4 permit report. This goes before the EPA at the end of the year from all the jurisdictions participating in the Middle Rio Grande watershed. And this report will be posted for public comment in October. And I stand for any questions.
Okay. Anyone have questions for Director Justice about her report? Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to our commissioners' informal discussion. Are there any reports of information or any thing you would like to share with the other commissioners? Anyone? Speak up or raise your hand or something. Everybody's falling asleep. Okay, we're moving on to adjournment. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Commissioner Christensen to adjourn the meeting and seconded by Commissioner Park. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. All right. This meeting is adjourned at 9:43 p.m. Thank you all.
Night, y'all.